2. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Gloves Off, episode number 7. You got me, Evaletti, and James McSweeney here, UFC veteran, Muay Thai fighter, kickboxing legend. What's going on, James? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, guys. How you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm doing good, man. It's been a long week. Last week, obviously, a very busy one for a lot of journalists out here between, the UFC, Bellator. There's been a lot of news that came out this week, but I was just ringside at Bellator in Connecticut for Bellator 207, which obviously was headlined by Matt Mitrione versus Ryan Bader. I was there for the weigh-ins. Baby Slice fought. It was a lot of fun, man. I did the vlogs on it. This was a crazy, crazy week for Bellator. We're going to talk about that. Also, John ANIK has been in the news. Me and James are going to run through that. DC versus Lewis, Eddie Alvarez signing with ONE FC. But let's start with just what you've been up to, James. How was your week? Because I know you're getting back from vacation here, right?
Well, yeah, I just got back yesterday. Actually, the night before yesterday. Sorry, my days are... I'm still struggling with jet lag. And all kinds of different stuff. I literally got back Sunday night. And straight back into the gym Monday morning to teach and to train myself. It was a great trip after my fight, but a long trip. It's nice to be home, but we've got a huge rainstorm right now, so it's not that great. But no, it took me a few days to get back on track with the times and stuff, but I travel a lot, so it's not so bad.
Just for everybody, maybe it's their first time tuning into our podcast, you went to Disney World. How was that?
Disney World's fantastic. The first time I've ever been, but I got to live it not just through my eyes, but also through my daughter's eyes too. It was the first time she's ever been, and we've kind of held her off until she was 5 years old. So while we was over there in New York, we got a small flight over to Florida, stayed there a few days, hit Disney World. I did. It was the kind of worst thing after my fight I should have ever done, because I broke 3 or 4 small bones in my left foot, and
you had to do a lot of walking.
Yeah, and then of course I was in New York City, so we walked Fifth Avenue and walked all around Central Park, and we did all that, and then we hit Disney World, and then of course we did 6 hours in the morning around Disney World, went back for a couple of hours to the hotel, then went back in the evening to watch the fireworks and do even more. So it was about a 9-hour day in total at the park. So the walking we did was just miles. I was limping around the place and it sucked, but it was an amazing time. Disney World for me is probably one of the most spectacular places in the world, not just for adults, but for children too. I mean, my daughter just had the time of her life.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the good places when you're a little kid too, because the magic's still real. It's kind of like Santa Claus and all that. It's still a part of your reality. So that's really fun.
That's what I mean. To see the look in her eyes when we went into certain areas, and to see certain characters come up to her and just see her face change. It was just living it, just not through me as a father, but also living it for a child as well. So it was fantastic. I was very, I had a great time. But, now we're back to reality. I've got another fight coming up December 1st. So training straight back into the gym and started this week. And away we go again.
Well, obviously it's October, but, people tuning in the podcast can't see, but there's a black cat behind you. Where are you right now?
I'm at home. That's my cat.
That's your cat?
Behind me?
Yeah, she's chilling on the table looking at us.
It's my cat. It's my daughter's cat. Yeah. But I'm just at home right now, back in Phuket.
So let's jump into the meat and potatoes of things like we like to do here on Gloves Off. Episode 7 is a really special one because it's starting off with one of my favorite fighters who is recently signed with ONE FC. Eddie Alvarez, he is now signed over to one of the bigger promotions that has been making their name in the up-and-coming last couple of years. What's your thoughts on this? A big move? Is it walking to the sunset? Is this a better promotion for him? How do you see this move?
Well, I fought for ONE FC. I had a contract with ONE FC. We had our we had our disagreements. ONE FC, let's get something straight. ONE FC is an amazing company. They took what I said online in context, and I think they took it personally, and it wasn't meant to be that way. It was a sign of frustration. I fought for ONE FC, and basically after I had a 1-year inactivity clause in my contract when I fought for ONE FC, and they almost made me wait 11 months until I had my first fight for them. So I signed with them, so excited to fight. I was exclusive contract, couldn't fight for no one else, and then wait 11 months to fight. And, that financially, that's a tough hit. That's hard to deal with. But when you do fight for them, they treat you very well when you're there. The show, the promotion itself is fantastic. The level of fighters that fight for them is great. The rule set is great. It's just that break period between fights. And for me back then, I was fresh coming out of the UFC. I had a few fights. Then I got offered a ONE FC contract. They were like the new Pride at the time. They had the same as Pride rules, soccer kicks, and all these things. I was just so excited to fight for them, and just to sit around financially. And also, I felt like I was wasting my career because, I mean, not fighting for 11 months is quite a hard hit.
I think I remember when that happened to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was used to fighting very regularly. I was fighting 5 times a year at that time. So it was very tough. And then, of course, I won my first fight. I had a good knockout. 6 months later, I fought again, had another good knockout. And then 6 months later, or 3 months later, I fought Roger Gracie. And
oh my God, I recently rewatched that fight, actually.
Yeah, I tore my ACL a week before the fight. And I had, I stressed to them that I had some injuries and, they wanted us ready to fight. There was no problem. I agreed to the fight. I shouldn't have been kicking during the fight. I threw the kick and it damaged my knee in the second round. In the third round, it collapsed. But neither here or there. After the fight, I contacted them and said, listen, as soon as I get better, I want to fight as soon as possible. I'll get this sorted out. I want to be back. And I never had no contact with them for... They never returned any texts, emails, or conversations for about 8 months. Not one single conversation. And I just thought, wow, man, that's... I've had 3 fights for you guys. I fought really hard. I felt like I was a part of the company. And then you don't even return my emails. And then eventually I did get an email back saying, look, James, we don't know when you're going to fight, but, just we'll let you know. It's going to the board or something. So a lot of people online were messaging me and saying, James, when you're fighting again, how's your recovery? And I said, look, guys, but it was relentless. Everyone was asking me. Everyone wanted me to have a rematch with Roger, and it was causing a lot of fuss. And I said, look, guys, just relax. I don't know when I'm fighting next. I know I've got to fight soon. I can't sit around and waste, time. Something's going to have to change. And then I got an email from them saying that the owner of the company had seen my Facebook post and wasn't happy with what I wrote, and they fired me.
I remember when that happened. Yeah,
so it caused mayhem because so many people found out about it, that I'd been fired because of a social media post, even though I had never even put ONE FC or even named them. And I wasn't even complaining, saying like, oh, talking bad to the company. I just said something has to change, meaning I'm gonna either
hungry to fight,
be allowed to fight soon, or I don't know, but there'll be news soon. And they took it as a complete disrespect, and they fired me. So I was like, well, at the end of the day, you've probably, I want to. Then I signed with KSW, so they did me a favor. I got to fight regularly again for other people. I have an open contract. I learned my lesson, and we moved on. Now, moving forward to who's in hand, we're saying here, are they going to be able to fulfill his contract the way he needs to fulfill it?
Yeah, how many events do they have a year?
Well, they fight pretty much every month, so they have a lot of events, and now they're doing kickboxing events as well. Now, Eddie Alvarez has been a big name in Asia, of course, Japan, because of Pride Days and so forth. So you know why they've signed him. But the more thing is with Eddie is, why did he go down that road with them? Not saying they're not a big company, but they're not the UFC. The biggest signing they ever had or payment-wise, I think they were paying about $50,000 to $60,000 back. This was back when I fought for them. I don't know what they're paying people now. I know back then it was about $50,000, $60,000 for some of the bigger names. I'm sure Eddie Alvarez was getting way more money in the UFC. I don't know what he's getting with ONE FC. None of my business. That's up to him. But are they going to keep him fighting regularly enough? Or does he want to fight regularly enough? Because, I mean, they signed the heavyweight, who's the heavyweight champion now. What's his name? Jesus, it's terrible. My memory's very bad. I can't even think of it. He's the heavyweight champion for ONE FC. He used to fight for UFC as well. He's the heavyweight champion now. He's half Filipino, half American.
Let me look it up.
Do you know what I mean?
Let's see here.
As soon as you say his name, I know it will kill me.
Brandon Vera? No, not Brandon Vera.
Brandon Vera. That's
Is it Brandon Vera?
Yes, Brandon Vera is their heavyweight champion. Now, when they signed Brandon Vera, I was still fighting for them, and we asked for that fight a bunch of times. Now, Brandon Vera fights about once every 2 years. He's almost, I think, as from my recollection, he's actually working for ONE FC on a monthly wage. That's what I've been told. Whether that's correct or not, don't shoot me over it. I'm told he's on a monthly wage.
Which means what? He's doing commentating, or he's doing behind the scenes stuff, or
well, he's not even doing commentating. They're sending him to, because he's got the Filipino background. He lives in America, but because his heritage is Filipino, they use the Philippines a lot for the ONE FC bites. They send him to the Philippines as like an ambassador for ONE FC and do appearances and all kinds of stuff. They're looking after him in that respect. Are they going to start? Are they going to do that with Eddie? I don't know what the deal is. I'm surprised Eddie has made that signing.
Here's another thing too. I mean, Eddie Alvarez, where he's at in his career, he said he only got a couple of fights left. There are some names over there, but they do some things a little different, like weight cutting and stuff like that. What do you know about their weight cutting? Do you like that? How they do it? Like you have to stay in range.
They used to do it the same before as UFC. How they do it? They do it on the same day now.
I forgot the in-depth thing, but it's definitely different. Where you got to stay like within a certain range. Like they measure your natural weight.
They can a certain limit. You can't be X amount of pounds when you arrive to sign in. You can't be X amount of pounds over, and then you can't be X amount of pounds over on the day as well. If your weight limit is like 185 pounds, I think you only be 190. I don't think that's the biggest question here. I think the biggest question here is what they're doing is where's Eddie's mindset at? I mean, he took a huge, massive defeat to McGregor. He really felt he was going to beat McGregor. McGregor absolutely beat the living granny out of him.
But then he fought Justin. That was a great fight.
Yeah, he's come back and fought that, but it just doesn't seem like. I mean, if I was him, you would want to go back for Conor again, no?
Yeah, 100%. That would be that's the rainbow.
To look back on your career as a fighter and having the opportunity of, okay, I lost against Conor McGregor, I've come back and had a good comeback. I want a rematch with Conor again. That would be the natural drive to come forward and beat the guy that beat you before. For him not to do that, I mean, he hasn't got nothing to prove to anybody. Eddie's been around a long time and one of the most fantastic fighters in the world. I'm just surprised that he's meant to attribute that he doesn't want to take that rematch, or he doesn't even try to fight for that rematch. I mean, then there's so many other fights out there available for Eddie that's great fights too in the UFC. UFC, in my opinion, treated Eddie pretty well. I don't know the ins and outs of behind the door. I don't know what ONE FC have offered him. I mean, I was just surprised to hear that he would step down from the UFC bracket. That's what I was surprised at. And that's not saying ONE FC isn't a good promotion. I'm just saying that it was a surprise. Anybody that steps down from the UFC voluntarily, I'm always surprised at that.
We were talking about how they're trying to reach the Filipino market with Brandon. Do you think they're trying to reach more of the American audience by signing Eddie? Do you think they're going to come over here? Because it's not really that big over here in America, ONE FC.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, I'm terrible with names and I'm having a hard time. Who's their wrestling champion right now that they have?
Oh, Ben Askren.
Amazing wrestler.
Ben Askren.
Ben Askren, he was on $50,000 a fight. They were signed Ben Askren. Ben Askren is a part of the Evolve Gym, who is owned by Shatri. Shatri is one of the owner, or actually the owner of ONE FC. Very powerful man across Asia. He was only fighting once a year. So, I mean, they kept toying with the fact of trying to get Ben into the UFC and stuff like that, and Dana wouldn't take him. I mean, he was a good person to have for the American market, but it didn't seem to do it. I mean, they've cut out. They used to have soccer kicks. I knocked out who did I knock out? Well, one of the Brazilian guys, Cristiano Kaminchi, with a soccer kick. And now they've taken soccer kicks out. So maybe they are trying to reach into America and change the rule set for the American audience. maybe they are trying to reach that way. I mean, they're a very smart company. They now they started a kickboxing or a Thai boxing with small gloves. They've signed some pretty big names in the industry, some actually very big names in the industry. They're doing dual events. I mean, they're making some serious moves. I'm just still shocked. I'm not shocked that ONE FC wanted him. I'm just shocked that he would step away. But that's just my opinion. I don't know. I mean, I'm just shocked. Anyone who steps away from the UFC voluntarily, I'm shocked.
And you know what? So you would probably agree with me here. I wasn't sure if you would at the beginning of this, but you know, my first initial reaction was this is kind of Eddie Alvarez's walk into the sunset.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's not going to be walking in towards the sun, going to ONE FC, because I mean, everyone knows at the end of the day, all these companies come along and say they're going to be the next UFC, they're going to be better than the UFC, and blah 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 blah. But we all know it's never going to happen. The UFC was the first and foremost to bring MMA into the world. No one can deny that. No one can ever say the best fighters in the world aren't in the UFC. The biggest money to be made in MMA is in the UFC. So, you know, if he's stepping away to go somewhere else, I mean, I didn't believe. Did you see the write up of the statement he put out there? Is that he wants to go for the ONE FC belt and hold a belt in the UFC? Pride,
yeah,
ONE FC.
I did see that.
I think that's a load of crap, to be honest. I think that's just trying to give an excuse of why you've really stepped away. I think he needs to be a bit more honest with, if he's not with himself, at least with the audience, and tell it how it is. If he feels that, hey, you know what, I've gave the UFC the best run I can, why Conor's there, he's just got my number, or why I can't deal with their contracts, I can't deal with the sponsorship, so whatever. But give a real statement. To say you're going to ONE FC just to go and collect a belt doesn't make sense to me.
The lightweight division, too, is so stacked over in the UFC right now. They got some big works there. It's upsetting to see Eddie leave. It really is. It was a surprise. A big surprise. Yeah, I mean, why not go back to Bellator?
I'm really surprised. I'm really surprised. That's what I'm saying. Why don't you want to go to Bellator and get their belt?
Yeah.
And you've already got an American, huge following. See, that's what I'm saying. To me, it doesn't ring clear to me. Because Bellator could have offered him probably more money and probably keeping him more busy.
And he's more relevant now if he went back to Bellator, because it's like, look, I went over to the UFC, I became a champion, and I don't know, I think that would have been a better move. I don't know. We'll see what happens here, James, but a big thing.
Yeah. It's a big move. I mean, it's a bold statement. It's a bold move. There's more and more people lately coming through that have tried or got to the top and then lost the belt or whatever they've done, and then they're quick to step away. I mean, it seems to be happening quite regularly quite now. So there's a lot of politics behind this game.
There's a lot of swapping here going on as we move into the next segment here. Jon Anik finds his way back to the UFC after going with Bellator. What do you think about this? I love it. He's part of the wheel that makes the UFC the big machine, just like that. You know what I mean? Big welcome back.
No, I think it's great. It's great to see him back. I'm a huge fan. I love
Anik
the way
and Goldberg, both need to come back.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great in that respect. I just think I'm surprised because I know the UFC were very stubborn about taking anyone from Bellator at one stage, but then now it seems to be back and forth,
Well, wait, I think I got that mixed up. Jon Anik was already signed with the UFC, but he just signed 4 more years. It's Goldie who is with Bellator, actually. I think I mixed that up real quick.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought you said he. I thought you were talking about Goldie.
I mixed it up in my head. Yeah. No, Anik signs back with the UFC apparently for 4 more years.
But then that's great. That's good. I mean, he's a great fighter. I'm very happy for him. I mean, I'm looking forward to the fights that he can bring. I think it's a great sign. I'm good to have him back.
He's part of the wheel that keeps the UFC going. Like every time you tune into the UFC, Jon Anik, Joe Rogan, like the familiar faces. That would have been so upsetting if he left, and that's why I think they need to get Goldie back. He was another guy that was just like, I missed the sayings that he had and stuff like that. It adds to the company.
Well, it was great having Goldberg because he was like Joe Rogan was brought in as the fight analyst, as you like, and he would break it down and bring that kind of the fight passion. And then of course Goldberg was the clean cut image presenter. He was the You know, he was the layer upper. He would lay up the conversations and let Joe Rogan take over into the details. But I think he was one of the best at it. I was very disappointed when he left. I think they should bring him back.
So moving forward here to the biggest thing that people have been talking about, Conor McGregor. We've had some time to digest what has happened. I personally don't want to see a rematch. I think Conor can move on. We kind of spoke about it a little bit on the podcast before. But how are you feeling now, James, that we've kind of been able to digest what's been going on, reading some of the headlines and whatnot?
Well, it just seems there's a lot of the same as anything. Anytime there's a big kind of spectacular out there, there's always people jump on the bandwagon to use that bit of hype to manipulate their opinion, their business, their structure in the community, in the fight world. You know, there's some people that go out there and just try and say outlandish things just to try and get a reaction, just so therefore it can be plastered over social media or whatever it may be, or start a spectacle. But the fact of the matter is, listen, it was terrible what happened. We all know what happened. It was terrible. It's the fight game. Sometimes shit happens. Shit gets caught up. I don't know if they're keeping Khabib's money or Conor's money. That's going to happen in time. I think at the end of the day, I think a rematch does need to happen. I don't think it's happened straight away. I think Tony Ferguson, is next. I think that's a great fight. I think Conor is going to play himself very smart, as he always does. And I think he took the loss as well as anyone could.
Yeah.
I think his comments were, good slap, good smack, let's get back. I look forward to a rematch. And I think he did the same thing with Diaz. He proved to everybody that he took a loss, he come back, trained hard, corrected his mistakes, and he beat him again. I don't know if he's ever going to have what it takes to beat Khabib, but I never say never. To be honest, if that fight happened 10 times, there could be 10 different outcomes.
If you're Conor McGregor, what do you do? Right now, what do? You take a little time off and relax, think about things? What do you do?
Yeah, he needs to take a bit of time off, spend some time with his family, his child, his wife, spend time with people that you actually care, real people that you've got in your circle, not the new people, if you like, since you're newly rich. Go back to the old times where you were training hard, a bit more in secluded nature, where you haven't got 50,000 cameras up your ass and so many people all the time. Your attention and rolling up in Lamborghinis every few minutes, or Bentleys and rollers, getting a lot of attention. I think go back to your basics. Go back, train hard, work on your amazing techniques you had that got you there, and just go out there and rebuild. Don't take it too personally. A loss is a loss.
Yeah.
It's not. Like I said, it's a loss. Like, people think, and it happens all the time. And I've had to recently deal with this myself. Like, when you're younger and you lose a fight, like, you get to question yourself. You think, oh my God, I can't believe I'm lost. I thought I was the best in the world, and now this guy beat me, and that means I'm not no more. Well, it actually doesn't mean that whatsoever. As you get older and more mature in the sport, you start to realize that, you know what? Everybody loses. Everybody. At one stage or another, you're going to lose a fight. There's a few exceptions out there, but eventually everyone's going to lose at one stage or another. What does fighting mean? There's a winner, there's a loser. In this game, especially at a high level, it's, if you leave it to judges, it's an opinion. If you knock the guy out, you can have 10 fights and that may never happen again. He may have submitted you. The submission defense, but you may have just fucked up that one time and got caught. This happens in life. This happens in grappling tournaments, happens in kickboxing, happens in MMA, happens in the boxing world, happens on any sporting field. But when there's team sports, mistakes can be hidden a little bit easier. When you've got all eyes on you and everything's on you make one mistake, the guy's an assassin, he pulls the trigger and catches you in a heartbeat. Does that really reflect on your personal performance or personal belief system of yourself? It shouldn't, but it's very hard not to nowadays when you get God knows how many thousands and millions of people hitting you up on social media, feel like they should tell you their untrained professional opinion of how good you are or not good you are, or how much you suck or how much you don't, or how crap you are because you lost against one of the best guys in the world at what you do. I mean, at the end of the day, Conor fought one of the best guy in the world right now, and the same as Khabib. If Khabib got knocked out by Conor Everyone was saying, "Oh, we knew Khabib sucked. His hands are terrible, and this and that." The fact is, the guy's 26-0. Now he's 27-0.
This is
the fact is, he got beat by one of the best guys in the world. How does that make him suck? He's number 2 in the world, a number 1 contender. How does that make him suck? I've just had this recently with my fight with Thiago. I very rarely get too much bad publicity online to me directly. I've had a couple of people messaging me just recently. "Oh, you lost against Thiago. You suck. You should hang up the gloves." I went the distance with one of the guys that was in my opinion, would still be in the UFC.
A household name in the UFC too. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was a big name in UFC. He took a lot of hats. He took a lot of victories and beat a lot of hell of good people. He won an ACB title just recently. And I took the guy, in my opinion, when I watched the fight back, I believe I won.
That was an exciting fight,
I didn't know. Yeah, we had a close fight. Either one of us could have put each other away at any given time. So does that make us, like, if I beat Thiago, does that mean he's terrible?
People just have no idea. People just have no idea.
You know, it's just people just like to voice an opinion nowadays. It doesn't always have to be correct opinion. They just want to be heard. They just want to seem like they know what they're talking about. They just want to seem like, if they get to say that to you, then there's in their crazy opinion, their stature rises, and it just seems ludicrous. You know, I just don't see how they warrant that. Well, you know, at the end of the day, if a complete stranger who knows nothing about the sport, the only thing that he knows about the sport is that he watches it on TV.
We've seen it bother a lot of fighters, like Rashad Evans admits to it. It's like, you know, I listen to the people online, and that shit really got to me.
Well, it can do. And the fact is, I know Rashad personally too, and I know he's a very emotional person in some respects. And I think all fighters are to a degree. And we're all very egotistical, and we're all very proud in ourselves. But what you've got to do is you can never allow the voice of someone you don't know, or the voice of people that are not important to you, over listen to people that are important to you, especially yourself. Your self-belief can never take a downward step. Once you stop believing in yourself as an athlete, or anyone, I think actually in general in professional life, once you stop believing in yourself, you're pretty much fucked in life, right? Because the minute you stop thinking you're good at business, the minute you stop thinking you're good at relationships, the minute you stop thinking you're good at a certain thing you're so passionate about, it's always going to take a huge step down. Your confidence is going to go.
We knew this was a huge risk for Conor McGregor, too. I mean, ever since he won the featherweight title, I mean, Conor was fighting at featherweight, went through a lot of people, and he wanted to challenge himself by moving up a weight class or challenging one of the best boxers on the planet. You know, there's a risk that's involved.
This is what I'm saying. But the fact is, if there wasn't a risk, he wouldn't have done it. If there's not a risk, them type of people don't do it. In my opinion, for myself, you know, like it's like when I fought MMA for a world title in Sweden on Saturday night. I flew on Sunday to Bangkok and fought at Lumpini Stadium for a world title in Thai boxing in 3 days, with a day and a half of flying in between, after going the distance in that fight. To do 2 different fights in 2 different realms for 2 world titles, the other side of the world, in 3 days. No one's ever done that before. I knew the risk. If it wasn't a risk to do it, I would never have tried it. I wanted to be the first one to do it. I wanted to be. That was my anchor for doing it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's like Conor. Why did he want to go in and fight Mayweather in boxing? The first ever boxing fight he had. He wanted to go and fight the pound for pound best in the world. Because you know why? He's the type of guy that goes and puts his hands on the table and says, all in. I'm going to win it all. I'm going to lose everything. I don't give a fuck. You know, that's what's made him where he is today. That's what's put a lot of successful people where they are today, is they're risk takers. They're not going to go and sit and just not take a risk. But people that aren't risk takers don't like that, you know, and they're quick to judge when it goes wrong. So it's almost like when it goes wrong, they're like, ha, told you so. That's okay. That's why I don't take risks. That almost gives them an excuse of not doing it themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of feel that when I read these comments that people write about professional athletes, or actors or even people in business, like, oh, this sucks, this craps, their restaurant's no good, he's a crap politician,
The
he's not a
reality
good
crumbles.
actor.
Yeah.
You're talking about people at the highest level in their game. You know, if you're a business owner and you own your own business, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like someone saying you're not good at media, you're not a good journalist. Well, that's your opinion, but where does your opinion come from? How many years at media and journalist school did you go through? How much have you studied to do this job? Where did you get your values from to make that judgment? And they don't. It's just an opinion. It's like saying a complete stranger across the road, I don't like him because of the car he drives or the way he dresses. You don't know him. You're just making a judgment on pure face value. You don't know the person. That's why people say, like, oh, Conor, what do you think about him? I can't stand him. I hope he loses. I said, I didn't know you'd met him. And they said, what do you mean? I said, when did you meet the guy? When did you meet him? Did you have dinner with him? Did he go to the movies with him? Did you go on holiday with him? Where did you meet him? Was he dating your sister?
They saw him promoting his own fight.
No,
yeah.
I've never met him. I said, but you don't like him. Yeah, but what I see him do and the way he talks, I said, is he talking about you? No, he's selling his business. There's ways of earning money. You know, he's promoting himself and his business. You want to make a judgment call and think that's how the guy really is? Geez, that's, you know, we shouldn't be judging anyone here unless you know them personally. And I think that, to be honest, the whole world would be a lot better place if we didn't do that.
There's a lot of people that also respect how Conor's dealing with this, how strong he's saying. I find that influential in itself.
I think that's a powerful tool. And to me personally, I mean, to see how he handled he puts himself in such a spotlight and pressure by what he does before fights and the way he carries himself. He puts so much, and I've never seen anyone else in the sport carry it so well. But he also carries defeat like a true champion as well. He puts his hand up. He says, I lost. This is like when he said against Nate, it was one of the most intelligent things I've ever heard a fighter say about a loss. I didn't control my energy output. And I was like, wow, that's the most intelligent, on point review of your performance I've ever heard a fighter say. And I knew then, after hearing that he'd come back and he would beat him. Because he knew what he did wrong. And he was intelligent enough and honest enough to put it out there.
I think this is
and he only put it out there. He knew it would never happen again.
I think this only lights the fire more for somebody like Conor McGregor to make him push himself even more, get in touch with his root. I think we're going to see something amazing come next for Conor McGregor, honestly. We haven't seen the last of him, that's for sure.
You know what? No, you ain't seen the last of him, that's for sure.
Way.
The guy is built for greatness.
But anyone saying that is crazy.
You know what? Even if he comes back, you know why they say that? It's because Ronda Rousey didn't. That's why they're saying that. Because Ronda Rousey took a loss and didn't come back. But you could name another 50,000 fighters out there that did. You know, Randy Couture, Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz, true greats that will come out there, lost a fight, come back and won again, and also won the belt again. That's why there is 2 or 3. John Jones lost the belt, got stripped, whatever you want to call it, took a lot of heat in his personal life, took a lot of heat online, made a huge bad mistakes, come back and beat the crap out of DC. Then he's took another heat again, lost his belt, now he's coming back again. And that's what you see these true great fighters and athletes do. That's why they're great.
Even DC.
That's why they are.
Even DC got the loss, and then he came back. You know, he cried on national television.
And now he's a 2-time division champion. So what makes people great? It's not the fact that he come back and he won the belt. That's one thing. If Conor came back and loses every fight for the rest of his career, that's not what makes him in my opinion, or to anyone's opinion knows about the sport, that shouldn't be what defines him. What defines him is that he lifted the sport, and him being in the sport only bettered it for everyone else after his entrance.
Hands down agree.
That's what makes true ambassadors of the sport, true influential people. They put the word legend out there, true legends of the sport. Because after John Jones, after people like Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz, Randy Couture, after people like that, even Brock Lesnar to a degree, then the day that Conor McGregor entered the UFC, it was a better sport after that day. And it always will be. because he rose the bar of pay-per-views, sponsors, attention. He brought a country to the sport. He opened up networks. And then you got some, no disrespect, but you got someone who does whatever job or career you want to pass. It doesn't matter. I'm not putting anyone in boxes here. Voice an opinion of him who's never even stepped foot in an arena, let alone in a cage or in a gym or anywhere else. So, you know, that's why I think it's a huge shame that there's certain athletes out there that have taken these opinions personally and allowed it to beat them. I mean, I had this very interesting conversation. We're going a little bit off topic here, but it was very interesting. When I was at Manny Pacquiao's birthday party. I was flown in from where was I? I was flown in from Thailand to the Philippines. I sat with Manny. We had his birthday.
I saw these photos. Yeah.
Yes. And I've known Manny since training with Freddie Roach years ago. He flew his private jet for me to pick me up and take me out to his birthday. I sat with him for 2 days. They have a public birthday party for Manny, and I was at the head of the table with his family. And then the next day it's at his house, which is a private event. And we were just sitting in his office having a few drinks and chatting and talking about bits and pieces. And I've never really asked him, but I said, Manny, I need to ask you a personal question. And he said, yeah, go on. What's the problem? I said, after your loss, I said, when you had, I think it was 3 or 4 fights he had with terrible with names, the Mexican guy. They had a very controversial history. Manny won one on points. It was controversial. Then the other guy won one on a decision. It was back and forth. But the last fight, it will come to me his name. He knocked Manny out very badly. He knocked him out very badly. And I thought it looked like Manny got shot. He was knocked out so bad. And all these critics went from being the Manny Pacquiao, the 6-time, 8-time division champion of boxing, were all putting him down and calling him all these different things. I said, Manny, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that and then come back and fight, you know, Ricky Hatton and knock him out? Then you come back and fought Floyd Mayweather. How do you deal with that? He said, James, if you don't want to lose, don't fight.
Are you talking about if you don't want Marquez? Juan Marquez?
Marquez. That's it, Marquez. When he got knocked out by Marquez, the last fight, Marquez knocked him out tremendously very bad. They had a whole trilogy before that. It was absolute wars, but they were controversial fights. So when I sat there, I said, the Marquez fight, I said, it was a terrible, terrible knockout. How did you handle that? I said, man, I don't know. I said, Freddie told me you handle a loss better than anyone else he's ever met. What is it that you do? He said, James, if you don't want to lose, don't fight. If you don't want to earn money, don't fight in public. Not everyone's going to like you, and you're not going to win all. I've knocked out far more than I've lost. I didn't ask them when I should fight. He said, I'm not going to ask them when I should stop, and I'll stop fighting when I see fit. My belief system was in me from the beginning, and it'll be in me to the day I die. And I just looked at him and I thought, wow, not only are you saying it, but I can actually see it in you. That's what you believe. And that is why you're a legend. That's why you're a champion in this sport. And I don't use the word legend willy-nilly, you know, I just here and there. That's why you are who you are in the sport. That's why you get paid millions of dollars. That's why you're, in my opinion, one of the pound-for-pound best boxers to ever live.
And that adds to the story, and that gets people interested. And I'm glad that you brought Pacquiao up, because he was actually on my list of topics. I don't know if I sent this one to you, but Cody Nolov was calling out Manny Pacquiao. What's your thoughts on that? Kind of a crazy call-out, but what do you think?
I think all these MMA fighters really should just stick to fighting MMA, and, you know, if they want to go into kickboxing or whatever. But there's no MMA fighter in the world that's going to stand there and go toe-to-toe and box and beat a top 3 to top 5 boxer in their division. It's never going to happen. Just like, and that's not knocking anyone in the MMA or in kickboxing, but that's just like if a boxer was to go and try and challenge, like James Toney did, try and challenge the MMA world. You're not going to last around.
I fed him a lion too.
It's two different sports. It's, you know, but the thing is, what's happening now is because Conor McGregor has broke that mold. You know, now you're seeing like people talk about Khabib and Mayweather and stuff like that. Yeah. That's never going to happen. Don't believe this crap. Don't be out there. is absolute rubbish. Don't believe this stuff. There's so much, I saw a thing with I know Ali from old. He used to hang around with Rashad and I years ago in Denver, Albuquerque. This is before Ali was a manager, before he was with anybody in New York. He was in Albuquerque, and to be honest, Ali used to be the guy that Rashad used to give a hard time to. Rashad used to send him out to get drinks, and he was like a little coach for Rashad. Rashad used to make fun of him and stuff like that. But now we always knew Ali had a checkered past. I mean, we'd been given a heads up about Ali and his criminal past as well by actually one of the strength conditioning coaches at the time, Chris Luttrell in Albuquerque, New Mexico, had warned Rashad, be careful hanging out with Ali. He's got a big record. And it wasn't a good record either for the American government. So it was very dangerous. But now you got Ali as a manager. He's out there saying all kind of stuff, trying to act like, oh, Mayweather's got my number and we were talking and this. I don't believe a fucking word of it. It's just that mold has been broken. Khabib is still on a UFC contract. If that fight was to happen, Khabib wouldn't last 1-2 rounds.
It's just to stay relevant.
Never happened. But these fighters that are out there nowadays are just doing it just to get a reaction. They're just trying to build. If they can make it happen, who knows the kind of money they're going to earn? Who knows? Yeah. Because they've seen Conor do it, so who knows what kind of money they're going to get for that? It could, they sealed the money that Conor made. So they're all trying to think now, oh, well, I can make that money too. The UFC can't stop me because they let Conor do it, and why would they let me do it? It's not going to happen. I can't see another UFC fighter stepping into the ring under the UFC banner.
And not being that big. There's no way it's going to be as big as what Mayweather McGregor was. No way.
No, because before it was kind of like, it's like when James Toney stepped into the UFC. No boxers have ever done it ever since. It was kind of before like, oh, let's see what happens. Now Conor's done it. Let's see what happens. We all knew what was going to happen.
We got our kicks.
Yes, it happened.
Yeah.
Yes. Now we've seen it happen a bit for fun. We've seen the freaky fight. No one wants to see or pay for that again. Because at the time, two of the very best in the world tried it, and everyone in the world that had a real opinion knew what the outcome was going to be. And you know what? That's what the outcome was. Surprise, surprise.
If you
pay another $60 to see that.
And the craziest thing, I love that you brought it up, because the craziest thing, if you go to any news site, if you go to Bleacher Report right now and you scroll down, there's at least 3 or 4 fighters calling out Mayweather, saying that they're in talks. You got Woodley saying it as well, Habib, Mighty Mouse was saying it at one point.
Yeah, because now they're all being greedy, and I don't blame them. I'm not sitting there saying like, oh, if I was offered a fight with, Anthony Johnson, would I not take it for millions of dollars? Well, of course I would. I'm not stupid. I'm a fighter. I fight anyone in the world, and I've done it for less money. If they offer me hundreds of millions, I would take that fight in a heartbeat. So I'm not blaming them for it. I'm just saying to the public, come on.
Yeah, let's see. Until we see the contract, let's stop. Yeah.
Let's just stop, right? Let's just focus on the sport.
Yeah.
There's enough fights inside the MMA world to keep it amusing, to keep it the fans happy. Let's just let the sport do what it does. Let's let people in the fight, in the sport, just continue to fight MMA. And if they want to go and step into glory, or they want to, but we've seen how that's gone as well. There's only a few people in the world that have transferred over and done that. We had a conversation about this last time. There's only a few people out in the world that have tried to do it successfully, and it's a very difficult concept to make. And it all depends on what you say is successful as well. I mean, you're putting yourself under the highest, biggest magnifying glass in the world. It's not going to happen again. They made their money. They're happy. And the only reason why that happened the first time is because Dana was a part of it. They made a whole production under the Conor and Mayweather promotions. They done it under their – they earned – no one ever said how much money did Dana make.
You're right.
Or how much money did he make from that. We all talk about Conor making $100 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go online and see what Dana made, or see what the UFC banner made. You won't find it.
So
you'll never find it. So I can tell you now, people that made the most money was the promotions.
So as we know, the one thing that did come out of this, Conor McGregor got his little his stake in the UFC in that moment as well, and now with the whiskey, I mean that was just a huge thing. There's no way that anyone's ever going to be able to recreate that. I don't think the interest is there. It's been done before, like you just said. It's been done before. I think everybody needs to lay it to rest. 100% agree with you, James. As we reach,
you know what, in another 5 or 10 years' time, when there's a new super champion in different divisions, maybe we'll be interested again.
All good points.
I'm not interested in seeing that again.
All good points, James. You just killed it on that subject too, man. A lot of things I didn't even get into in the last couple of weeks. So you just literally just nailed it right there. So as we get into the 45-minute mark of the show, there's one last topic we need to discuss. Bellator being such a big part of the last week here. Did you catch the Fedor versus Sonnen fight? Did you catch the Bader versus Mitrione fight? What were your thoughts first on Fedor versus Sonnen?
I didn't see it live. I just saw the highlights at the end. I mean, to be honest, I think that was the Fedor that we've been dying to see for a long time. And it brought back a little bit of pride days for me just to see him so commit to his shots, fight a little bit more all around. I mean, is his accuracy and the power that he throws. There's a picture you can see online of his whole body and his arm fully extended, and his fist is completely covering his jaw, and it's just what an amazing shot that is. I mean, his accuracy is, and always has been, fantastic. I think he got away from it a little bit. I think people worked him out a little bit over the years, but I mean, at his age and stage, to see him come back, I was impressed with Fedor when he fought Maldonado. I mean, I fought Maldonado. I know how tough that bastard is. And I saw him get rocked. I saw Fabio rock him. I saw Fabio beat him up with good shots. Those two guys had a war.
What do you think of that fight, though? You think Fedor won that or Maldonado?
I think Fedor won.
Because it got overturned.
Yeah, I thought Fedor won the fight, but it was very, very close. And it is yet just an opinion. I'm not surprised it got overturned. I'm sure Fabio, he deserved the victory. I mean, I fought him. He's super tough. He can take a beating like no one else in the world. The guy's just a robot. So it was the Fedor that we've been hoping to see since back then. When you saw him knock out Frank Mir, I wasn't surprised. I was surprised more that Frank dropped him, but this performance myself was like the Fedor of old. That was like the person I grew up watching. That was the person that I wanted to see for so long, and I think he shocked everyone with how well he's kind of reintroduced himself. He's changed some things out. He was in Holland the whole time I was in Holland training. He's changed himself from being secluded in Russia. He went to Holland. He's gone out there with one of the best kickboxers in the world. He's put himself with one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world, and he's made a real good team, and he's rebuilt himself, and I'm very proud of him.
And how do you think well, first off, I got to say, James, you called it, what was it, last week, 2 weeks ago on episode number 6, when you told me that it matters what Bader shows up. And man, when I saw him at the weigh-ins, first thing that came into my mind was damn, I think James got this. He was just so mentally there. He looked physically better than we've ever seen him before. And the way he was able to go in there and win every round 10-8, back to, I was blown away. How do you think he does against Fedor, though?
I think he has a tough night against Fedor. I think it's very tough for him because, I mean, I'm one of the hardest people to ever convince about Mitrione because, of course, I know him on a personal level. Yeah. And I'm sure he's changed over the years. We're going back 10 years. I know I've changed and he's changed. So I'm probably being stubborn to I'm very proud of some of the things he's achieved and some of the people he's beat. He's evolved a lot. But one thing he never did, he never lived up to his potential. And that's what kind of really always bothered me about Mitrione, is that the guy is such an athlete. He could learn so fast, but there's just certain parts of his game that never evolved. And knowing him to see how he trains, it's just surrounded himself with people that have, or he's just not allowed the people around him to train in the right way, or the people around him haven't trained in the right way. And the fact of they've kept him one-dimensional. They've kept him just as a boxer. He doesn't kick that much. He doesn't throw many knees. His wrestling is never good. His submission defense is very bad. And I think that's why I've always held a bit of a grudge against Matt Mitrione, is because I met him day one. And I actually told Rashad Evans to
Giants. Yeah.
I told Richard to pick him because I knew he was a raw talent and he was someone that could learn very fast in the sport. He always had a very athletic nature, a very good fast jab. He punched extremely hard. But I knew when I fought him, just take him down and submit him, because it was like, let's challenge each other on our feet or go down where I'm going to rule. And back then I had no groundwork either. I beat him with a half guard.
And you were coming as a Muay Thai fighter, right? You were coming as a kickboxer.
Yeah, I had no submissions whatsoever. I was just a Muay Thai fighter, kickboxer. And looking at him now, he hasn't changed. When I saw Brendan Sharp fight him, I said Brendan will take him down, and Brendan loves the Darce choke. He will alligator roll him, and he will
I need to go
finish
back
him.
and watch this season, man. I need to go back and watch it.
And he did that as well. And then, I was surprised Roy didn't take more of a ground nature against Mitrione, but then Roy is not as athletic as he used to be, and his wrestling isn't as good maybe as Mitrione's defense is to take him down. But when he got him to the ground, the old Roy would have finished him for sure. Roy got away from his submissions, but I didn't think Bader was going to do that. I knew Bader would just absolutely grind out the victory, take him down, outwork him, give him no space, and I think Bader thought that Mitrione would just quit on the floor, because he has done before. He showed some mental strength. He didn't give up, but he got the granny kicked out of him. And Bader's been around a long time. I mean, this is kind of the best Bader we've seen for a long time, right?
100%. But do you think that the factor that is Fedor, like, it's got to be hard for fighters. I mean, that's Fedor. When you're stepping in there, you got to be a little starstruck. Do you think that's going to bother Bader or no?
Yeah. You say that to a degree. If you'd have said that 5 years ago, I would have agreed with you 100%, like the Mike Tyson syndrome.
Yeah.
He had a lot of people beat before he got in there. But now, Dan Henderson burst the bubble. The Brazilian, he beat him as well. The triangle choke, that was a big shock.
Verdum.
Then Verdum, that's right. Then you've seen, then we've seen him lose a few times now. Now we've seen him overturned against Fabio. Fabio stayed on his feet against him for the whole journey, and then now we've seen that overturned. And of course, then we just saw Matt Mitrione knock him out. So does Bader the type of guy that's going to look back in the past and say, yeah, oh my God, I'm fighting the Fedor from Pride, or is he going to say, I'm fighting the guy that lost to the guy I beat?
So how do you see it going? You go with the decision? Because I see Fedor winning this as well.
I would imagine Bader is going to go into this fight no more fearful than he has done of any other fight. I think he's going to go in there thinking, this is just another guy. This is just the guy that lost against the guy I beat. And that's the best mindset he could possibly have. In my opinion, I believe Fedor will win this fight. I think his wrestling is as good, if not better, than Bader's. He hits harder than Bader. His submission game, but most importantly, he has an absolute phenomenal, massive overtake of experience over anyone else in the world. He's fought at the biggest platforms. He's fought at the highest level with the most amount of pressure. I mean, don't forget, Fedor had the biggest, winning streak for many, many years. You know what I mean? That carries an immense amount of pressure. Now, I hope to see the same Fedor that we saw last week.
How true is it, like when a fighter gets punched by a hard hitter, how true is it that changes a lot of, once you taste that first punch, what does that do? Do you think that has an effect there once he feels Fedor's power?
Well, you can't help but think, if you've never been hit by the guy before, and everyone talks about how hard he hits, either he hits you the first time and absolutely puts you, into space, or if he does clip you and you're like, wow, you can't help but tell yourself, shit, he hits hard. I don't want to get hit with that again. So, it does put you straight away, and then you've got to start fighting back and bite back and so forth. But it's neither here or there. The fact, I don't think it's going to come down to strategy. It's going to come down to experience. It's going to come down to who's mentally best prepared. I don't know why we've seen Fedor before not perform the way he used to. I don't know why we've seen Bader not perform the way he's used to. But it seems at the moment they're both peaking completely right to perform their very best. Wherever way you look at it, it's going to be an amazing fight.
Last question. Do you agree with me here on this last thing that Bellator has definitely gained a couple of brownie points this year with this Grand Prix? It was a genius idea on their end?
I mean, it was kind of, we all tiptoed, is it genius or is it absolutely crazy, right?
Yeah.
Is it like a tournament without many heavyweights, but it seemed to pay off for them. It definitely paid off for them. I think it was a very risky, but as we spoke about earlier, some geniuses, some successful people in life take risks. Scott Coker has always been a risk taker. He was in before, and he actually lost the promotion because of it. He seems to be making the right kind of miss. He's learned by his mistakes. I think he's doing a great job with Bellator. I think he's put on some very interesting fights. He's picked up some very interesting fighters, and they're making some great fights that the fans want to see. I mean, just the fact they put on Rampage and Wanderlei again. For me, as a fan, yes, I wanted to watch that fight. Me as an athlete, I didn't want to watch that fight. But for fans, there's fights out there they want to watch, and this tournament has brought a lot of interest to Bellator. And I think it's made everyone up their bar. There's a lot of promotions out there talking about tournaments now and trying to copy the blueprint.
100%. James, I want to thank you so much. What a great episode we just had. Guys, make sure to subscribe down below and make sure to follow James on Instagram at McSweeney MMA. James, before we let you go, anything else that you want to get on the table? Anything that you want to get out there? Oh, by the way, we got to get the Gloves Off logo on your shorts. That's the next thing.
Yes, for sure. I'll have that on December shorts for sure, no problem. No, just always thank you for all the fans always coming in and tuning into us, and we love our podcast. And if there's any, I think we should start getting some good feedback from, or good or negative. I don't mind. If there's anything you see that we're not doing or we're not talking about, please send us your ideas. If there's anything or any other interest that you think that we could help with, let us know. I think maybe we should start doing a spot on the show where it doesn't have to be just about the fights, but people can talk about martial arts in general and give us, if they want any kind of tips or influence, or
that's a good idea.
If they want to know anything you want to know, we can start discussing other things outside of just normal fight relationships. This is a martial arts podcast. It isn't just about just the fight game. This is about martial arts and the way of life it brings for everybody. So I'll be more than happy to help any way I can. And if you guys listen out there are happy and liking it, that's fantastic. If there's anything you want to see us change, let us know. This is only our 7th episode, so we want to grow, we want to get bigger, we want to get better, we want to make sure that we're hitting every listener and they're getting what they want and they're happy. We just want to keep everyone happy and on board. So if they could give us their feedback, we'd be really very, very appreciative.
100%, guys. Make sure to subscribe down below. I want to thank you, James, so much, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much, guys. Take care. Oof.
Have a good one, guys.